anybody can be a recruiter. It sounds corny, but I think it's a situation
Better or
where
worse.
better or worse. But I mean, it's, if you have a great network, you can turn somebody into a recruiter with the right tools.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring the best and the brightest from all the business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, my guest today is Dave Vu, who co-founded Ribbon, the AI voice interviewer that autonomously screens every applicant, uncovers richer candidate insights, and frees hiring teams to focus on the standouts. With 15 plus years leading recruitment and people ops across scrappy startups, hypergrowth scale-ups, and a VC firm, he blends frontline hiring savvy with strategic talent architecture. Backed by top venture investors, Dave now channels his deep domain expertise into building tech that lets employers and recruitment teams hire faster, smarter, better, faster. No, this is not a Daft Punk song. We're going to get into it. Dave Vu, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks, Adam. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. We're just talking about our good friend Rona. You're on Rona's show. Listen, a friend of Rona is a friend of mine. Rona is fantastic. And I was like, all right, Dave's pretty cool. Let's get to it. So, Dave, as I was telling you in the preamble, pre-chat, guest chat beforehand, I'm all about finding out about founders' journeys. And I really believe it begins with the origin stories. But any good recruiter, you know this, the core trait is curiosity. And I'm always curious, if you don't mind me asking, what did your parents do for a living?
Yeah, so my dad was an electrical engineer. So he was very data focused. He thinks like an engineer. He was always like tinkering around the house. I remember as a kid, like going into the garage, he would have like the TV opened up and like fixing it and putting it back together. So he was very much an engineer, and always thought like an engineer. And then my mom was just a housewife. And back then that was
That's a career.
career that worked. And we had 4 kids in our family, so it was a full-time job for her.
I totally get it. So looking back then, I mean, even as an engineer, right? I'm sure your dad had a very methodical mind. What was one of those early lessons that you learned from him that you look back now and be like, thanks, Dad?
Yeah, honestly, the biggest thing would be probably hard work. Both of my parents are refugees, and they came over from Vietnam during that tumultuous time with,
Right.
during the Vietnam War. And so when we came over, they did not speak any English, right? Or very, very limited, let's just say. And so we had to create a whole new life for ourselves here in Canada. And so as a kid, I saw the hard work that they put in, not only to assimilate, fit in, be a great neighbor, community, be part of that community, but also just working really hard in order to, put food on the table for us, essentially.
I can't even imagine. I take it for granted as a, native born New Yorker too, but my wife immigrated here from Minsk, Belarus too. And I talk to her parents all the time, and we hear the stories of those early days and the work hard and the immigrant work ethic. How have you really applied that immigrant work ethic to every day of your life?
I mean, I would do a disservice to my parents if I wasn't putting that in, right? And I saw that day in, day out. It's one thing when parents tell your kids, to do certain things versus like quietly doing it themselves, and then you can mimic and follow along based on their actions. And so I think growing up, that was always part of my DNA, at least, is we put our nose down, work really hard, and once we work really hard, good things happen. And so I take that to my day to day all the time. And I have 2 kids now, so I try to instill that back into them
Always.
as well.
But they see that. I got 2 kids. I got a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old. They see how hard mom and dad work, and they see the fruits of our labor. They see the physical stuff. They see us working hard. They see the effort that goes into it, and that's everything, man. Right? Like that's really what it's all about, is setting that example for them. All right, so let's get to it, man. How did you get into the people business?
Yeah, honestly, like, as a kid, you don't grow up thinking, oh, I'm going to go into
I'm going to be a recruiter.
talent acquisition side, right? But it was one of those things where, I completed business school. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I kind of stumbled upon the talent side of things, of the business. So the story goes, I used to work at Oracle when I came out of school. I was doing an internship there, and I was on the front lines doing sales and growing through, my cutting my sales chops.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I wasn't really sure if that's what I wanted to do forever. I knew sales was super important, and I was getting poached out to interview for another role at that time. And funny enough, didn't know this until later on, but my boss was going for that same job. We both
Oh,
interviewed
no
for that
way.
exact same job. No way. Yeah, exactly. And so when that happened, I didn't get the job, unfortunately, but the individual that was interviewing me, who was a VP at the time, said, yeah, you have great potential. I love your energy. I love your hard work. And, I think you're going to do great things. Relay that message back to the recruiter that was poaching me at the time. He was running a recruiting agency and came to me and said, "Hey, listen, this is out of the blue because this is you were interviewing
Right.
for a sales role, but we're trying to grow our business here in Toronto." And keep in mind, this was early days of 2010 when the tech scene wasn't as burgeoning as it was in Toronto. He said, I love somebody else that's young and hungry to join my practice and then see if we can build this up. And I said, you know what? Might as well try it.
Well, you weren't loving what you were doing in sales. You're already interviewing, kind of elsewhere. And I always say this: those early jobs are not going to be your forever jobs. Very few people stick with the same. And
Yeah.
it's more important, and anyone who's a fan of this show knows I say this all the time, so you're probably rolling your eyes. Those early jobs, learning what you don't like to do is more important than what you like to do. And that's going to really what shape you forward, and it pushes you in the right direction. And I think anything with recruiting, it's about connection and curiosity. So let's go back a little bit and talk about those early days at Ezra and Local Logic, and talking about the difference between hiring at an early stage versus scaling and hypergrowth.
Yeah. Hiring at an early stage, you almost become a de facto founder in some sense because what you're doing is you have to tell a great story and you have to be able to go and sell the bigger vision to candidates, right? And so you're essentially rolling up your sleeves and doing a lot of different things while you're selling at the same
Of
time.
course.
And so that is a very different type of recruitment and selling because you have to go find great people, convince them. They might have never heard of your company or what you do. So there's a lot more, you know, um, relationship building, convincing them what things are happening at this organization that the individual should join. And obviously, versus like a company that has a brand, has a notoriety somewhere, that becomes more a systematic way of recruiting and hiring just because you're now tackling things at scale. You're tweaking your messaging, you're making sure things are running more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to go back to basics, and I'm me myself. I'm a in the trenches recruiter, but I also
Yeah.
understand how to scale, and I understand what it's like working in a larger company. And you do your best to be as human as possible as much as you can, but sometimes what's on your plate is too much. You got to figure out those systems. You got to figure out those processes that will enable you to have more time. So looking back at my notes here, and I see, you were the first hire at a startup, VP of people, and now a founder. What do you think that common thread is that has really shaped how you think about building teams, from the ground up?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing would be putting in place the right process and doing that as early as possible. Even if you're small, by doing these little things, because once you get into the trenches and you're moving forward, you get bogged down. And so thinking about things early on, how do I put the systems in place? Systems as in like, what types of questions you want to be asking these
Right,
candidates.
your process, so you have a
Yeah,
standard.
yeah, exactly. And so by doing that, it sets the tone, right? And then as new people are joining and you have your current team, they're going to follow that and they're going to tweak it slightly as well. But you have a framework somewhere to start with. And I think that's really important. And then when you're doing that, you're also looking at inefficiencies in that process and you go, okay, well, there's tools out there that can make that whole process a lot easier and scalable as well.
It's so funny. I guess not funny at all. I look. I've been a recruiter for 10 years now at this point, and I have like a script in my head, or at least a flow that it really hasn't changed since my early days of recruiting. When I learned the art and science of it, I
Yeah.
have my introduction, I have my context. I learned, how to ask and talk about compensation at the end. How you frame, and ultimately what it comes down to, any good recruiter, is we want to understand the motivations of a candidate, right?
Absolutely.
We want to understand, why are they looking to make a move? Is it straight up money? You're not getting something in your current role. Are you going through a relationship? Whatever it is, right? You need to know what that is. So when you get to the finish line, and I'm not saying it in a cynical kind of way, but when I'm trying to close a candidate, I need to be able to double back and say, hey, Dave, I want to go back to the first conversation.
Hmm.
Remember when you told me that there was no upward mobility at your company, when there was a glass ceiling there, right? And you're like, oh yeah, Adam, I remember that. Right? You want to
Yeah.
remind them and kind of keep those reminders on there. So I want to talk a little bit more about, just hiring philosophy and culture in general. And I love this, because I hate the F word. I hate the F word, and the F word is fit. I hate culture fit. I'm not going to do my normal, soapbox rant on it, but you're an advocate like me over culture ad. And I'd love to really understand from your perspective, so I'm not the only one talking, why fit is outdated, and really how leaders can practically hire for ad the right way.
Yeah, I mean, fit, I think, is such a bad definition that I think should be thrown out in our industry. Because fit, what it implies to me at least, is that you're essentially cloning yourself, and so you're
Yeah,
just
everyone
hiring the
looks the
same
same.
people. Everybody looks the same. Everybody talks the same. you know, that's not really what you want to build when you're building a company or a team or a culture, because essentially everybody brings something unique to the table. They're going to add that something else that you're probably not seeing, right? Unless you're a perfect candidate or an individual that already has everything that to offer. Most of the time, you're adding something unique to the culture and the team, and I think that's really more important for me to be able to find. And it goes back to what you're saying, which is like you can really only uncover that if you have a really deep conversation, build a relationship, and understand people's motivation. Because the first conversation you're going to have with them, they're trying to sell themselves. Let's be
Mhm.
honest. Like they're
It's the
sitting there,
pitch.
they're
They're
trying,
pitching
yeah,
you. Yeah, of course.
exactly. They're pitching you, and so your job is really to let them put their guard down, have an honest conversation, and make them feel comfortable, like as if you're trying to figure out if you're going to be able to join the company, contribute right away,
Right.
and add to the culture.
It's about diversity of mindset. Let's check the box and say that the
Yeah,
candidates' values are aligned, that they're good people, they're no assholes, right? Like the no asshole policy, good humans there. But you want diversity of mindset. You don't
yeah,
want a whole company of yes people. What good is
yeah.
that? There's no push, there's no pushback on that. And so was there an example, if you could give us, of like that one solid culture ad really changed the trajectory of a team or a company?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna pick up one specific individual, but I know
Yeah, just give me in general.
there's a few times where I had a misconception about a role, and this person came in and is able to not only do the job, but like do the job better than what I initially imagined what the job description would be. I think sometimes the description puts a candidate in a box, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a situation where, and especially in a startup or early stage company, where you kind of want people to be able to be curious, like you mentioned, and be able to explore and try different things. You know, people surprise me all the time, and so I think once they come in and you can give them what they're supposed to do in terms of responsibility, they're going to show you more, and they're going to show you what they can do more and more all the time. Continue to feed into that curiosity, and then you're going to see some great things.
I love it. And I I love this. I love this next kind of line of conversation here, because when I was doing my research, he said, recruiters shouldn't just be gatekeepers; they're marketers. I truly, when someone asks me what I do for a living, I say I'm a marketer, and they go, well,
I
what
love
is
that.
that? I'm a marketer because, and not just because of my podcast, but yes, that's a big part of it too. But I'm pitching and selling roles, and there's a marketing element to that too, right? There's totally sales to that, So, but what does that shift look like from a lot of folks who are purely practitioners to get them into that marketing mindset?
Yeah, I think you are the front lines of your brand. And that's the way I look at it. And you're not selling a product, but you're selling the company and you're selling a culture. And so every good recruiter should think that way. Because the way I look at it, every email, every interaction, every interview, every touch point is essentially a representation of your brand, right? In action. And those individuals see that right off the bat. They're going to want to tell people about it. They're going to tell other candidates about it. You want to build that great reputation. And I think that is super important. And so you have to take some pride in doing that. And if you do that, you're going to separate yourselves from other recruiters, the thing I'm sure you see all the time, Adam, is that there's a lot of recruiters that just go through the motion, right? And I think number one,
Well,
it's boring for them,
mhm.
but also number two, they're not really doing a good job of like being excited, being enthusiastic, and selling the company and the brand.
Candidates can feel it.
Yeah, that's right.
I always say this too to any companies out there, and it really comes down to employer branding too. Your recruiters are the first contact point of any new potential employee coming into your company.
Yeah.
Right? Like they are the brand. They need to sell the brand. We're talking about in-house recruiting right now. We're not talking about agency recruiting, but even in agency recruiting too, you're pitching the company. You
Yeah.
want somebody to work there too, and you have to know the story. You have to know the role as best as possible. And yeah, guess what? You're selling it. So listen, we're going to get into Ribbon in a little bit, right? We're going to talk about what it does, but at its core, your product at its core is not unique. There are other companies out there. So if you think about it, if you're pitching Ribbon from a recruiting perspective too, what's going to make it stand out? Why? What is it about the team? And please don't tell me it's the people. Please don't say it's the people. Tell me what it is about the people. What is it about the founder? What is it about the product? What is it about the culture that they developed, right? Or let's just get a little bit deeper in that. Maybe you have some really, really unique value add, really truly value add equity structure, or something like that. Like what is the reason there? So, all right, you've been in the trenches as a recruiter, you've been in the market, you've seen what's going on out there. Why shift to be a founder and create this product, Ribbon? And tell us what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ribbon essentially is a voice AI interview. And you can craft out a custom AI interview in less than 30 seconds. You can pick the different personas. There's different, when I say different personas, you can pick an Australian AI
You pick it or the
recruiter.
candidate picks it?
You pick it. You
Yeah,
pick
okay.
it, right?
Just making
So
sure.
you so you can set that, and it's kind of cool because what you're doing there and why we built that on purpose is that we want to make the candidate feel really comfortable. It sounds super mundane, but like it's a small little tiny detail that allows the candidate to feel comfortable with who they're talking to, depending on
Right.
the region or the area they're in. And then we can have that AI convert itself into any languages as well. So think of like at
Oh,
scale.
interesting.
Yeah, think at scale. You can create this, and then it's a simple link with AI attached to it. And now you can embed it anywhere that you're attracting candidates. You can cast a really wide net. You can add it to your blog, your newsletter, inside of a LinkedIn post, for example, or a social media post. And you can go ahead and just describe your company. And you say, well, this sounds interesting and great, and you're interested to learn more. Click here to get screened. I think the main value prop for us is that candidates now want to do things at their pace, at their time. And so this gives them the opportunity versus like trying to schedule something. Imagine trying to schedule something that is available for you because you just put the kids down, but the recruiter is not going to do a call at 11 p.m. at night, right?
No.
And so this is pretty cool, and you can do this worldwide as well.
Well, I think another really interesting, and let's lift up the hood of the engine here. I think I get some pushback whenever I wrote a post on LinkedIn about salary or anything. Everyone's always bringing up compliance and everything. And every state, they're passing laws out there. New York City has a local law. I think it's 144, something like that. What does that mean? And one of the kudos to you guys, you're one of the first platforms to be compliant for that. Okay. How and why is that so important? Was that a hard thing to do from a technical standpoint?
Yeah, it's very hard, and that's the reason why we're one of the first ones to do it. Right now, I'll be honest, there's a lot of like ambiguity within the law when it comes to AI in general.
Big time.
Yeah, so I think it's going to continually change. We want to be just on the forefront and tackle it and think very thoughtfully about this, especially if we want to be the leader in this space. And we are already the leader in this space. We want to continue to like pave that way for others to see what that looks like. And so, local law. New York Local Law 144, essentially just making sure that you're not biasing candidates, right? And this happens all the time when it comes to recruiting. Is that
let's get into this.
Yeah, indirectly we'll have biases, and so
we all have them. They're called unconscious biases. We're all born with them.
That's right. Yeah, even me, like even if you're fighting against it, you're going to have some biases, right? The beauty of an AI is that you can actually program it either to be biased or non-biased, right? And so it's what they did was, and how we passed this is that they took a large sample size of all of our candidates that was interviewed, different background, different genders, like all the different types of candidates that are out there, And there was consistency in terms of how we would screen those individuals and unbias those individuals based on the recommendation or the scoring that we gave them.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Poscast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyzed a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you. Interesting. I mean, like we talk about, California is one of the most not progressive, they're really moving it forward there, and especially what's happening in the EU. Do you think a lot of companies are underestimating? Like, what are they underestimating about AI audits and compliance?
Yeah, and they're underestimating it for sure, because I think, when you're crafting out the AI, you have to be very mindful and conscious of how you're creating that AI. And, I'll give you an example. We, people have accents when they're interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
That's very obvious. We made sure that the AI.
You say a boat.
I say a boat, which a lot of my friends will say that I do, but I still don't see it necessarily. But
no, I heard it.
I know I do.
But I'm also keen to that, being spending 5 years in Buffalo. Yes,
that's true. That's true. And so we make sure that the AI is not listening to accents, because it's just really listening to the content, and so that's the most important thing.
That's fascinating too. So, beyond compliance, how can AI help reduce bias and increase fairness in hiring?
Yeah, the other thing that we're hearing a lot is now there's a recording and a transcript of that whole conversation. In the past, when you have a large team of recruiters, I have to take the word of my recruiting team sometimes when they have the initial
now
call.
We got receipts.
I say, yeah, I've got receipts, exactly. And so it's almost like, you're a sports fan. Imagine you can have an ability to call back that video replay,
exactly.
and it's available there. And so that protects companies a lot now by having that, because then you can say, look, I can pull up this information.
They didn't say that.
Yeah, they didn't say this. And so we can show you exactly what was said or engaged, and we can show you what the notes looks like as well.
And the same thing goes when you move further down the line in the hiring process too. The hiring managers have the ability to go back to the initial call. They have the ability to fact check, right? They have the ability to say, what did the candidate, actually say? So I want to talk a little bit more, because I love the founder's journey. That's what the show is, all about too. You've gone down the path from people ops to building an HR tech company. How is that background really giving you that edge? And I want to preface that by saying, I talk to a lot of companies in this space. I'm deeply involved in the HR and TA tech space, where founders are tech bros and gals, but they don't have that recruiting background. How is that giving you the competitive edge?
Yeah, so we see that in our product, and how we engage with our customers, and how I communicate with them. So the first conversation I jump in, I deeply understand their plight. I'm very empathetic and understand what they're going through. I sat in that shoe for a really long time. I know what they're looking for. Yeah, exactly. And so, having that conversation allows us to very consciously build a great product. And so my co-founder and I have a great background. So my co-founder Arsham and I both met at another startup called Ezra in 2018. He's the brains behind this, which with the machine learning background. And I know the space really well. Combined together,
powerful,
creates a lot of dialogue. And so
it's complementary skill sets and complementary backgrounds.
And sometimes we'll not agree on certain things, we'll disagree, but at the end of the day, we have these things that you can see being embedded into our product, and that's the experience you get when you're a customer.
You think every startup needs a co-founder?
I do, and I have a lot of young founders come to me to say, can I go do this alone? Of course you can, right? I'll never say no to that. However, it is a harder journey. My co-founder and I talk about it all the time. I can't imagine doing this without him. And he said the same thing. And the reason why is because it is an emotional roller coaster.
Of course it is.
Let's be honest. It is exhausting. It is an emotional roller coaster. And you can't go home and tell your wife. You can't tell your significant other.
There's only one person that gets it.
Exactly. They don't care, but also I just feel bad. I don't want to be burdening them with my stress and stuff, right? So
yeah, it's interesting. But then there's also the Great co-founder relationships are where you're able to have that civil discourse and really push each other and
Yeah.
question each other, not each other, but really the product and the questions, and come at it from different perspectives, because that's what's going to catch your blind spots, friends
Yes.
listening out there. That's what's going to catch your blind spots. Dave may see something his co-founder doesn't see because it's coming from a different perspective, and that's what really kind of rounds it out here, right?
And I'd love to add as well. I think this is
Please.
something so important that other aspiring entrepreneurs or business people out there that's listening is, trust is the ultimate foundation through all this. Everything that I've just said cannot work if you don't trust that person, because once you have that layer of trust and respect for that individual, it has to be mutual, by the way, because once you do have that, then you can open up and have real deep dialogue without having to sugarcoat some conversations. You understand, what things can be brought up, what cannot be brought up, how you motivate each other. Those are very, very important things.
I want to double back to the product itself there too. And one of the big hits that all the naysayers around AI interviewing, is that it's taking the human out of it. Like it's removing the human from the process there. And my kind of canned line, and a lot of other people, when done the right way, it's actually giving recruiters more time for the human to really tell the story, especially in like technical roles too. If you're a recruiter, there's going to be those 10 go-to questions to really assess someone's skill set there, especially in the tech world. A lot of tech candidates prefer it. They're used to it. But how are you, two things, like how are you ensuring the human side, but how are you also ensuring the human side on the candidate side, that it's not AI on the candidate side feeding these questions?
Great question. So the first one I would say,
let's break it down.
Our philosophy has always been human in the loop. I think that's very important.
Human in the loop.
Yeah, this is where my recruiting background comes in, is that I just don't see a world, at least not in the near future, where it's going to be just recruiter hiring all the way to like giving you an onboarding offer letter and bring that person. I just do not see that. I think, the way I describe it is, there's certain times in your life that you're making decisions that are super important. The first one is buying a house, getting married, and then finding a job. In all three of those areas, there was always a human in the loop. I can't imagine having a priest as a robot.
That's an interesting topic for a podcast. I bet you there are AI marriage priests out there. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe in the future, I could be wrong. And and we have a record here, so maybe you can invite me back when that does happen, and we can talk about that. But I do think human in the loop is very important, because it's more about, like you said, how do we make sure that the recruiting team spends the right time with the right candidates in order to build those relationships. And that can only happen if you're able to then filter that large volume of candidates that are applying, especially these days at mass, so that you can focus. Yeah, you can focus on those guys.
I mean, everyone sees it out there. It's supply and demand right now, and it's an incredible employer-driven market right now. And there's so many good people out of work. There has to be a way to filter. And I feel so bad, and I really try to be as empathetic as possible. But long since the days of, you have to be qualified, you have to be at the top of the list, you have to be relevant, because there's no reason for a company not to take the most qualified on paper resumes first to look at. I'm sorry, if you're less than 75% qualified for a role, there's a good chance you're not even going to get an email or phone call back.
Yeah.
And companies, especially large enterprise level companies, even smaller companies who have a limited recruiting staff, they need to have these tools. Listen, here's the deal. The longer a role is open, the more attrition you're going to have within your organization, because other folks are picking up the slack for 2 or 3 roles. So companies need to rely on it, because there's an ROI to it. There's an ROI to attrition.
And also, you don't want to burn your team out. That's the thing. You're going to burn guys out. You're going to burn people out, right? And so
you get it.
The situation is that it is taxing to do these calls. And so you want to give the opportunity for the best recruiters to do what they do best, build those relationships, sell the company, everything that we just talked about, right? Being a recruiter marketer. And so you can only do that unless marketer, exactly, as you coined it. We should put that on a t-shirt, by the way. I think I like that.
I don't think I coined it, but I use it a lot. Yeah.
Okay. It's very catchy. Very catchy. But I think in that situation, you get exhausted if you're in the trenches and trying to just screen through those people. And there's a huge shift that occurred, especially it was exacerbated with COVID and remote work and all that other stuff. And I think it's here to stay. And I think we have to have tools to help people out.
So what's exciting? You look ahead, and what's exciting about that intersection of people, culture, and AI over the next couple of years? What's exciting you?
Yeah, what excites me a lot is I see a world where anybody could be a recruiter. It sounds corny, but I think it's a
Better or
situation where,
worse?
better or worse, but I mean, it's, if you have a great network, you can turn somebody into a recruiter with the right tools. And I just mean like, you're not going to do full time like at that level that say you are doing and others that I know are doing for a really long time, but you can also tap into your network, use tools to be able to help you out. And I also see that same thing happen with a one person recruiting agency. That can definitely happen. Um, I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but I see a world where it becomes almost like an Uber situation where you're
Mm.
driving Ubers on the side. I can see people tapping to their micro networks and be able to use that, leverage that as a way of making extra income as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And talking about your own evolution too, what has been that biggest challenge for you to grow into a real leader, founder, people manager role? What was that the challenge that you had to develop from a skill set perspective?
Yeah, there's I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and a founder, but you don't realize how hard it is until you do it. So the three biggest things that I had to really build, and I call this like your business case. And so when
Mm-hmm.
you're working out,
Love it.
you start working out and you build those calluses. That's the same thing I see in business. The first one is you have to be ruthlessly patient because I think things take longer than you expect. And if you start going down this emotional roller coaster, you're going to burn yourself out very quickly because you're going to be deep down in the trenches, or sorry, deep down in the gutter when things aren't going well. You're going to be really high when things are going great. That sounds great, but you just kind of almost have to be level-headed and even keel because you're going to get these yo-yos on a daily basis, if not hourly basis.
Oh, it's a roller
so,
coaster.
so you got to do that. The other one is you got to be able to take rejection really, really well. I know as recruiters, we take it all the time sometimes, right?
And
Or
we give it.
salespeople, and we give it, but you really have to build that because you're going to get to a situation where things aren't going right. People are going to shut the doors on you. You just got to keep going. And, a motto that myself and my co-founder always have is keep going. And sometimes at the end of the day, it's the founders, not only that to thrive, but the ones to survive the longest, whereas your competition, quit, is also a great way of winning that, winning in that space. And so that's the other piece. And then the third piece is you got to get ruthlessly really well at communicating. I think that's super important. I know as a recruiter, you're already really good at communicating out there, but being a founder, you have to communicate and context switch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be able to sit in the shoes of those individuals when you're communicating to make sure that you're communicating effectively. They understand the context so that they can go ahead and execute and do what you need to for them to do.
I love that. I want everyone to pause, go back, listen to that one again. Sage advice from Davu over here. So what's next? What's next on the horizon for Ribbon? What's the next challenge? What are you building over there? Let's get some alpha out to the team.
For sure. So on the product side, we're continuing to add more new features. Our vision and goal is that we want to be the best voice AI that's out there, meaning that we can create an amazing voice AI experience that sounds super natural for our customers. And on top of that, we're going to build great features that amplify your workflow and how to make that workflow easier. We know that what we built today is the first step in that screening and hiring process. We know it's multi-stages, so we want to make sure that the AI is going to help you along the whole process until you give an offer to that candidate and maybe even beyond. And so we're excited to start building and launching out these other features and the different stages within that flow for a candidate and a recruiter. And then on the team side, we're growing constantly and we have new roles are coming up. So
Good to hear.
go check out our site, career site. And if you see anything that's interesting, let me know. I'm always interested to talk to really smart, hungry individuals.
I'm sure you use the tech yourself, right?
Yeah. So
eat your own
absolutely.
dog food, right? You got to eat your own dog food, Dave.
100%. And so everybody that I've actually hired had to use the tool, but it also helps a lot because we don't have a recruiting team or hiring team. And so I'm doing it myself. And so I'm using the tool to speed that up.
There are folks that could help you with that. You're looking at one of them. So let me ask you this, right? What is that greatest piece of career advice that you received that you pay forward to others?
Yeah, the biggest career advice that I love to pass it on, especially to young entrepreneur, is the first idea or what you execute is not always going to work out. So don't get discouraged. That is just part of the process. That is just part of the maturation process. That is just part of the experimental journey that you're going to go on. And so don't get discouraged. I see too many times people do the first one and they expect it to be like Mark Zuckerberg, hit a grand slam right off the bat. That's not going to happen.
Glamorification. We've glamorized entrepreneurship. It's not. They call unicorns a unicorn for a reason. They don't exist.
And also, you don't have to be creating $1 billion business. You could create just a really good business and still be a great entrepreneur and a business person as well. So just keep going. Be ultra curious. Don't be afraid to test different things, pivot, and learn along the way. I've had to do that many, many times, including even here with my co-founder. And so I look back and realize if I didn't do those things or I wasn't, if I quit too early, we would have missed out on a lot of great opportunities.
I love that. But on the other side of that, Dave, what's keeping you up at night these days?
Yeah, I mean, what's keeping up at night is also what AI is gonna unlock for the world, right? And with all the positive, there is some negatives, and I think that's why it is very important for us all to get together to think about what we're building. What does that look like? How do we approach this conversation? It's a very disruptive technology, and so there's going to be a situation where if you're not prepared for it, it's going to disrupt your industry, your job, your life. So I think the more you learn, the more you think about this, the more you talk to others, I think it's going to get you more mentally prepared for it as
Absolutely. Folks, it's not going anywhere. This tech isn't going anywhere. You have to embrace it, learn. I mean, even my parents are, exploring it too. My 13-year-old daughter and her friends, they got it built into their Snapchat. They're using it all the time. And, I guide her too. Like, use it as a tool, not a crutch. Don't rely on it for all your homework answers. Dave, last but not least, you look back at your career and you look back at what you're building now. But at this stage of your life and your career, Dave Vu, how do you define success?
Success to me, and keep in mind, I'm talking as a father with 2 kids and a little bit more mature these days, is really being able to build something that I'm proud of. Like something that my kids will look back and say, "Dad, I'm proud that you did this." I can look in the mirror and be like very proud of what I built. So with that, as you build something that you're proud of and you put all your heart and soul into it, that's what really success really means to me, because that's going to create something that is going to last beyond you. And so for me, if I can create something like that and I know that I put everything down and I have no regret, I think I can walk away very proud of myself.
Love that answer. Dave Vu, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I want everyone out there to check out ribbon.ai. We're going to link it up in the show notes. They're hiring. We have the open roles posted there. And everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. You know where to find out more. Follow us on the social media channels. Please go over to YouTube. Check the show out, YouTube.com/the podcast. Instagram @NHP Talent. Remember, subscribe, comment, sharing means caring. Leave a review rating. It goes a long way. Be good to yourself. Be better to others. And catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.